Hello, hello, and welcome to another edition of Maximum Growth Live. I'm your host, Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex Social Media Marketing for Lawyers, as well as managing partner of Ruane Attorneys, your criminal defense civil rights firm here in Connecticut. And with me, as always, my good friend Seth Price, hanging out Del Boca Vista Phase 2, down there in Florida, enjoying the sunny weather while I get ready for 18 inches of snow in Connecticut later this week. Oof. Yeah, 18. That's what they're saying.
That's like when I call home and it's like 60 degrees, I'm like, yeah, this is a lot of schlepping, a lot of rip. But when I hear that, I'm like, okay, maybe we made the right call.
Well, yesterday was beautiful. I'm sure in Maryland
it was 60. That's saying,
yeah.
Right? So then again, it was 85. We were at the beach. So,
I got to tell you, I've been talking to my wife about this. And I never thought I'd say this, but being a snowbird sort of appeals to me. Now, for those of you who are not on the East Coast, there is a group of people that hit about 60, 65, and they do January, February, and part of March in Florida, and then they drive back up north to the Northeast and live out the rest of the year.
And as they extend, it may go after Thanksgiving through Passover. That's the
exactly. And so I'm thinking that is going to be in my future. I've started in my spare time just looking at real estate in Florida on my phone, just to be like, oh, that has a nice pool and hot tub, and it's and I could be in a hot tub right now in Florida in 85-degree weather.
And the numbers compared to Connecticut, I mean, the whole thing is just crazy.
But anyway, so this guy.
Different.
Let me first, before we get there, for the people who are hearing us for the first time, Seth Price is the founder of Price Benowitz, along with a phenomenal lawyer, David Benowitz, but he's also the founder of Blue Shark Digital, which does search engine optimization for lawyers and law firms and other industries new too. Now, Blue Shark's really sort of expanding its footprint that I've learned in the last year. So really proud with the growth that you've done there. And both of us have really sort of taken to heart the lessons that we learned by reading the E-Myth book that we talked with the author last Thursday, and I wanted to talk about that with you today here, Seth, because
absolutely.
there were a ton of nuggets that I got out of it. One of them I put up as a picture today in the Maximum Lawyer forum is that if you're not a brand, you're a commodity, and that was something that really sort of stuck with me and really was sort of just nibbling in the back of my brain all weekend long, because commodities are priced at however you can get it cheapest, but brands are not. And yes, there is a rush to commoditize everything, but you can buy a $40 cell phone at the bodega down the street, but it's not an iPhone, and an iPhone is a brand that people aspire to. And I think you can.
And look, you can get even more. But that's a rough one. How about just the service? Why do I pay more for Verizon? Maybe it's better service, but is it something that's ingrained that because of that brand that has been built into you? Coke versus the no-name cola, all of that stuff. The fact that you have that once there's a brand, you're willing to pay a premium over just whatever that widget is to be consumed.
Yeah, I mean, look at this past week. You had the Airbnb IPO, right? Now, there are plenty of platforms that are out there to book rental properties. VRBO is one that I believe predated Airbnb.
I believe so as well.
And Airbnb is, their market price started at $55 and it closed at $140 at the end of the first day of trading. I mean, that's just because that is the brand people.
Right.
That it's not a commodity.
Well,
for them. It's a brand.
It's right. It's a brand, and it is now a threat to an entire industry. They have, it's again, yes, correct. Well, what are you going to do? I'm going to Airbnb it. That's now like a verb, like Xerox was to photocopying.
Yeah, and I think personally, I'm looking at that market, and the thing that Airbnb gets right is that they are customer based. They are a customer based for process where do you want a pool? Do you want to be able to bring your pets? What is it that you're looking for? The style of the house, that type of thing. And it's not necessarily, I mean, I'm sure the back end, I've never rented a property as an owner on Airbnb, but I'm sure they have the tools there for the rental housing people. But from the consumer perspective,
No, the people absolutely.
the
place I'm staying right now is not. We rented it privately as a monthly, but it is designed as an Airbnb. There have been some restrictions, so we were able to do a longer term lease and get it. But that the shorter term concept, that there's an entire group of people that are saying, hey, there's a demand for this. Like as a family, we wanted to stay somewhere that was not a hotel. That was not, I mean, right now, COVID is like the perfect example where you want your own space. And the whole idea of the hotel is it's communal. So it's just fascinating to see how this plays out as people's desires for proximity to others has changed dramatically over the last few months.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I was thinking about, the future and vacationing. You and I both did a lot of traveling, and I have a ton of Marriott points. I mean, like almost 2 million.
I hear you.
And I'm thinking, when am I ever going back to a Marriott? And I spoke to my wife about it, and we said, I'd rather rent a house with one other family and control everything than be in a Marriott with 1 million people that I don't know.
Well, that's what this summer, it was renting a beach house. It was not using Marriott points. That's why they keep building up. Yeah. And look, I almost feel guilty using them because you want these hotels to be in business. And now the first time you may go back to one, you're using points. So like, that's got to be topsy-turvy that they have this inventory of points that people are going to have to burn through. I'm sure they'll just deflate them like everything else.
Yeah.
One thing that you may or may not know, but you can get your Marriott points out to airline points. Not that you're jumping on a plane today or tomorrow at like an 80%, 80 cents on the dollar. You can get them out of Marriott to, I think it's United.
Yeah. But, those are the types of things that we're all dealing with in this Corona era. What other, that brand versus commodity thing really just sort of stuck in my mind all weekend. What are some of the things that you took away from the Gerber interview?
Well, look, I've the concept, it's just listening to the guy who put this together, hearing his backstory, fascinating, and getting, revved up, because I feel that, it's one thing, and I've seen it with two business, with Blue Shark, I feel like from day one was very disciplined about this. I think that the law firm world, and I touched on it later in the interview, it's challenging to apply all of it. Not that it shouldn't be aspirational, but I think that, we're going to see, and I'd love to get our audience feedback. It's one thing, and this is what I was sort of making the point on the program. It's one thing when you're e-mything your intake and certain administrative duties, but the legal widget itself, he's a true believer, and he's telling you, hey, everything is there. I'm not sure. Is there a point where reasonably, is there a point of diminishing returns of McDonaldizing? Now, there's a reason that we're not all 1,000 location law firms. It's not like we've scaled globally, so that if you do, but is that the point? The law is a protected space, and that the legal widget, when done at the higher level, is not McDonaldized. You're paying for somebody's expertise. Much of the before and after can be, but the whole point is you want that original thought widget coming out, and that's why somebody's paying, for that. And again, structure, I mean, you've done as well as anybody in the small firm space as far as systematizing much of what's going on, but is trial strategy a commodity that's widgetized? And I feel like that is where it can get tough, that I sort of buy it to a point, and there are things that I want to do. I'm still struggling with how far you can push it within a law firm. I know, look, admittedly, I have not gone far enough, and there's ways to go, and I'm always in awe of the things that you are doing. And as we talk about in our next topic here, the idea of leveraging overseas labor, for example, the only way to do that well is to be systematized. You can't allow somebody to be doing stuff without those systems, so that systemization is really important. I see that people that start with that, I think, have had a lot easier time than people that have tried to retrofit. I'm going through a lot of permutations trying to figure that out, and trying to get my own people to say, hey, this can wait for a week. Can it be done? But then it's like, do you have the person overseas? Can you get them up to speed? What is the transaction cost on the micro level of getting that done? But it is definitely something that both through yourself and reading E-Myth and everything else, I continue to strive for. But I always feel that I'm coming up short, that there is so much more to be done, but that the amount of effort, and this is no different than every small business owner when you're sort of giving up a responsibility, there's a point when you first hire that associate where it may be more work. You could do that person's work in less time yourself and your own work, but you'll never grow unless you allow that step to happen. And I feel that that's some of that discipline is what we're seeing Gerber sort of pushing us to strive for.
Yeah, I definitely think that it's a discipline thing. And, one of the things I am, me and my love for systems, I built 2 systems this morning, right? And we'll talk about them shortly, is that systems are great to have, but you can't just have a system and hand somebody the keys to the car and say, drive. I mean, they have to be trained on your systems, and the systems are the crutch. But you can't just expect people to be handed a playbook and know how to run every route. It's just not going to happen.
No,
and that's where I failed.
No. And look, I'm behind you on that curve. My law partner always gets upset. He's like, you can't just say, make it happen. I'll give it something to an employee and say, this portfolio is yours. Please deliver results. And you're disappointed time after time. Now, I wouldn't have gotten to where I am if I hadn't done some of that and failed. But, we're doing our end of year numbers. And yes, there's COVID. But, as you know, we've diversified beyond criminal and PI. And there's a practice group I'm looking at, and I'm not loving it. And I'm sitting there, and I think part of it is I've allowed, what I sort of advocated to Gerber, where I have systems coming in, but the actual sausage making is not widgetized. And I'm not sure I can, and it's not lucrative enough to do it, where if I decided to give up my firm and just do that thing, I'm sure I'd figure it out and build it and scale it at some modest level, not nearly as much. But the question is, that intermediate piece, not the in and not the out. But when I looked at it and I saw, we sort of dug into, why is this not as profitable as it should be? We were looking at one of our divisions, and I realized the sausage making was just massively inefficient, not by 10%, but by a factor of 2 to 1. And I didn't present them with a way to do it, because part of our mantra is hire great lawyers and let them do the work. But if a flat fee case is taking 2x the amount of time that you can, from a business point of view, allow, you have to figure out a way to do that within that time, or jettison it and move on. And that has been sort of the struggle, which is I'm trying to allow the lawyers to do their thing. And on a pure hourly basis, if you're collecting the hours, who cares, right? The hours are there, they're either billed and collected or not. But when you're dealing with people where it is a widget and the consumer is paying X amount and you're trying to perform the work within that piece, if the lawyer is spending too much time, it's going to throw off your economics. And I'm now seeing that. And again, you're always, there's some COVID issues, there's this, there's that. But at the end of the day, you need that mousetrap to be working. So on a traffic ticket, if you're charging $500 and you're putting 3 hours of lawyer labor into it, you're upside down. It can't be done. How do you make that work?
Well, and here's the thing that I think a lot of people need to take from this conversation, as you're dealing with this issue in Price Benowitz and the profitability. There are always going to be some areas of the practice of law that are much more potentially profitable than others. And one of the things that I have to constantly battle within myself, being a criminal defense firm, is understanding that I am a criminal defense firm, and there is essentially a ceiling to what we can make as a criminal defense firm, even if everything fires properly. And I'm going to tell you, it's not going to match a PI firm, because PI has a much bigger upside. Now, they also have a much bigger risk. They don't have the weekly cash flow that I have as a criminal defense firm. And so some of the stresses that I don't have, they have. And it's something that, and there's also a passion for the industry that I have in this niche that I don't have in others. So I am willing to give up certain things. And you can't sit in your seat as a law firm owner and simply say, I see another practice area as potentially more profitable. I'm just going to get into it. because I want to make that profit without understanding that there's risk, there's stress, and there's a whole other things. Because like we talked about early on in our conversations, a lot of lawyers we knew said COVID hit, I'm going to start new practice groups just for the hell of it because I'm not going to make, I want to make that money. And now we're 9 months in, and now they're having to work cases and they're starting to lose money because they didn't have the system set up to handle those cases efficiently. And so while they were able to grab market share, for that flat fee, $10,000 flat fee divorce, they've put in $12,000 worth of lawyer work on it, because they didn't price properly, and they didn't have the system set up to push the work down the line. So I think that's something that we all have to consider: is how are you doing compared to other firms like yours versus compared to other law firms?
Well, and that's what I did. When I saw problems within this group, I went and spoke to people at other firms, both locally and nationally, say that I thought were doing well. And again, the problem is it's all unvetted. You never know. You hear numbers, you hear things, you're taking it with a grain of salt. But when I saw stuff literally at a 2-to-1 ratio off, I'm like, okay, there's a significant issue with this particular group. But that even when you look at the best case scenario, there are areas that you can make a very nice living, but as you're saying, there may be it's a harder widget to scale. And like everything else, this is one of the things I struggle with. There are a lot of areas of law, and I'd say almost every area of law and business in general. When you rip people off or you give them much less value, you can make more money. It's true with almost anything in life. I know immigration people that if a case comes in that nothing can be done on, they'll say, give me $15,000, we'll investigate it. And that the answer is going to be, that nothing's going to happen. But that is a way of life. And so that I think as people, the moral compass is what I would call, the right, on the right path. It is a tighter game. And that is one of those things that there are, people in the trust and estate space that sell trust $10,000 to $20,000 trusts that by some people's opinions are nonsense. And that there's not a time and place for trust. Of course there is. But when you're selling to people that have no need for it because of you just have a very good sales mechanism to get it there, that is much more profitable than if you're selling $3,500 estate plans. And those are some of the things that I'm struggling with. When you do it right and you're doing what is in the best interest of clients, it gets to a point where the margins very often shrink. And I have no interest in going outside those bounds, but it is one that when I look at numbers, there are ways to make a buck that I may not want to, that I am not going to personally step to, and that's always difficult.
It is.
It's difficult in the sense that you think that there's a way to make a buck, but there may not be, because once you decide that this is how you want to do it, you have to get the efficiencies there. But even within that, as you're saying, there may be a ceiling to what you can make within that area.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's circle back now to some more of the stuff that Gerber talked about. He's of the opinion that everything is a widget. And we've talked a little bit today about how there's a level of legal work that it can never be widgetized. And that is, between the ears of a lawyer who is dialed into the problems of that area of law and can also be somewhat of an artist. I guess you could widgetize art, but you really can't. I mean, you got to have something, and that's part of the problem, I think, with people who want to e-myth everything about their law firm, is that there's some secret sauce that just comes from, years and years of experience. Or, let's give an example, for myself or for another trial lawyer. You've cross-examined a witness before and you asked a question and you got burned and you thought about it a lot. And now 10 years later, you're in a cross-examination situation and you know how to ask the question the right way this time. That's not something that you can widgetize. That's something that just comes from feel. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm trying to Right. I'm trying to balance the thing between this is a guy who's made a career with that mantra versus being humble and saying maybe there is more. And there, of course, there is. Like I look at you and you've done more. What can you do where when a case is opened, and I think some of the new softwares out there are forcing people, here's the list of checklists that are there. So while you would limit the art to how you go about the cross-examining, but everything else is commoditized, not in a negative way. I mean, there's plenty of negatives you could, but taking the pejorative out, that you're able to say, okay, I'm going to have how many witnesses? Okay. Has the investigation been done? Yes. Have I prepped my case? Have I prepped my questions? Have I gone over it with the person? It's never going to be flipping burgers. It's not. If you want that, go into a different business. Part of the beauty of law is that until recently, it's been a pretty protected area without outside investors coming in, so that you could be somewhat inefficient and still make it. I think that with Arizona and Utah and all these other states, California may follow suit, that as non-lawyer investors come in, we're going to see these efficiencies brought to market. Now, it may not be great for the consumer, which is why I think law has always kept them out, but we're going to see people certainly trying to e-myth further in than what you and I see as feasible.
Yeah, and it'll be curious. And let's get back to there was an article that we talked about last week's episode, that Amazon, the Forbes article about Amazon getting into the legal space and how they're focusing on the customer and serving the customer. And I think that's something that when it comes to e-mything your firm, you should maybe take a step back and look at it from a customer perspective, what the customer is looking for and what the customer needs. It's interesting. We picked up a client this weekend. And the reason why we picked up the client is because we have the ability to send text messages to the client. And what happened was, it was an intake that came in, and we were the second lawyer that they talked to. And the guy said, I don't understand this paperwork. I want to send it to you. Can you explain it to me on the phone? And the first lawyer he talked to said, I don't know how you would. He said, well, let me just text it to you. And he goes, I don't know how you could text me something. And the guy hung up the phone. He called us up. He goes, let me ask you, can I text you some paperwork? Because I don't understand what it says. Can somebody explain it to me? And my person answered, said, of course you can text us. Just take a picture of it, text it to this number. We'll call you back in 5 minutes. We'll explain everything. And the guy hired us. And it was a decent value case, because from a consumer perspective, we were able to provide something that the other lawyer couldn't. And I think that's
right. But look to where Amazon started. Again, they may continue to move, but people are commoditizing what they can. And Amazon went into areas where it was closer to a true widget, not legal expertise. And you're seeing the app that's fighting parking tickets, where it's under the value of what a lawyer can do. When you get to the point where the SaaS-based model is better than nothing, great. But we're even seeing this in the digital marketing space. There are all these people with SaaS-based models coming in, and the question is, if you want to get beyond the curve, most of the time you have to do something significantly more than what that automation will allow. That's why the lawyer's value time or the marketing person's value time is still there, but piece by piece. And we're seeing Google just went with the LSAs and saying, okay, we're going to now say we have clicks. We're going to now commoditize the call. And we're going to the potential call. They could keep pushing, but as you see, they're stopping short of saying Google takes up all the business they can. They're not saying, hey, we're going to go out there and defend your DUI. They're just saying we're going to take you from a click to a call. Amazon saying, hey, in some of these areas that our clients need, we're willing to go further down that chain because it is closer to the same widget that you would find on Amazon.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. If you have an immigration practice, which is a form-based practice, for the form-based practice part of immigration, Amazon could come into that space and say, we've got the computing power to be able to talk people through this and get the forms executed quickly, quick review by a paralegal, sign off by a lawyer, and boom, it's filed. That could take a significant chunk out of like an immigration lawyer's practice.
Agreed. And look, and the woman who's done a really good job, who's in Baltimore, she was from India, or spends a lot of time in India now. She basically, when I spoke to her about her firm, she was featured in the New York Times many years ago. She says, I'm a technology company. She got that way back. Yes. And I think that that's where there's going to be. And Mary Godoy and I talk about this frequently. He wanted to do like a lower cost hybrid model. And to me, I've never been a fan of that because I feel like that part is what's going to get commoditized. Just like a will. If somebody wants a $500 will, you have, you have LegalZoom there. So the only reason that somebody's coming and paying that premium to you is because there's somebody there saying, this is what's right for you rather than what's easiest to do. So if you only have $500, you're not going to spend any more. Probably better to have that SaaS-based model, that LegalZoom model, document. But that if you're going to say, hey, I'm going to be a $500 will person, to me, that you're going to get crushed because those other guys are better, cheaper, and faster and bringing the people through the pipeline of doing those follow-ups. I mean, you're seeing now, it is unbelievable. We think something and Facebook is marketing to us. It is clearly now at the point where they're reading our email and whether from my wife's email to my Facebook instantaneously. It's really remarkable. So, I see that, the lawyer, that down market is a really scary place because I do see that getting e-mythed and commoditized. And that if you want to survive, assuming you're not going to go up against the biggest boys, it's that value add for the time being that we can protect and use and add that value because they know that they don't want one size fits all and they don't want sort of a Mad Lib will, but they want somebody who can give perspective and make sure. And I talk about this in DUIs a lot. There's always a lower dollar DUI provider than Jay Ruane, but I look at it almost like a pilot. There's oftentimes you don't know what's going to go wrong. And once it is, it's too late. And so the question is, you're paying for that expertise to make sure that there's a 360 look at what's going on, what your options are. And yes, it may be that there's a plea very similar to what you would have gotten with, hypothetically, a public defender or whatever the commoditized widget might become. But that there is a value to somebody being there to figure out, hey, is this the right judge on that day? Is this something where we do want to go? What is coming up? Are there any other programs that might not be on the radar that I want to push for? Those are the things that you may be the value add that somebody who's getting a repeat player in the space rather than somebody who's saying, hey, I'm submitting the forms, going to hope for the best outcome.
Yeah, and I mean that's part of our sales pitch. That's part of what we talk about when we're talking to people is that we are the most expensive because we do give you that opportunity to see everything that's out there that other lawyers just don't see. But I want to talk briefly. We got a lot to pack into this show. I do want to talk briefly about my ongoing VA issue. We've been, we talked about this. We brought in a couple of VAs. One is crushing it and doing really well. And what we decided to do with our training is we extended it. Normally, our intake training is about a 2-week period because we're in office next to the person, that type of thing. We've decided to extend it to be 5 weeks. And what I was able to do is I actually worked with my people and we developed tests. So at the end of week 1 and end of week each week, they actually have to take a written test, and it's been working well.
So for the first time ever, this is a life moment. For the first time ever, I'm ahead of Jay on systems. It's never going to happen again, but I'm going to enjoy the minute. We've been at a 5-week training for many years. We moved to Trainual with tests. I love it. And look, my goal is to figure that piece out. I've always poo-pooed the overseas piece, but I am now, it needs to be part of at least the mosaic as backup. My ability to get people to work after hours and weekends domestically, it crushes the esprit de corps. And so the idea that we can figure out and get the systems to the place where somebody who before could not have been thought of in those roles, I'm excited for you and can't wait to continue to hear about the progress.
Yeah, so I'm really happy with the way that's going. In fact, in a little while, we've got interviews today with some more VAs based in South Africa that we might bring on. So this could be, because we were running into some problems with language when native Spanish speakers were calling state agencies in Connecticut. The state agencies in Connecticut were not happy with hearing a little bit of an accent, which was crazy to me. But we're trying to solve the problem. But I want to talk about 2 more things before we take a break. The first thing being our interview this coming Thursday. Tell us who you got. I want to talk. The show is going to be live, but the interview's not because of what you were able to get and how you were able to get it. So talk to us a little bit about that.
We got Rand Fishkin, who is sort of, to me, the godfather of SEO. He was one of the co-authors of one of the early SEO books. He created SEO Moz that became Moz. His connections into Google, and he became sort of the translator of what was best practices or not. His Whiteboard Fridays became sort of must-see TV. And he's now out of Moz. That story itself, from a business point of view, is fascinating. You assume when you create something as amazing as Moz that everything is rosy, and it's certainly not. It's a pretty awful founder story, and he's going to get into that, as well as, for those of us that have been on this ride for over a decade, sort of what it was like to be in that sort of hot seat where you had Google giving tea leaf readings and having to translate it, and there was such demand for trying to figure out what was real and what was not, and this guy was at the epicenter of it. He created a product, he took on venture money, and he built it out, and it is a fascinating, both on the substantive SEO side but on the business building lessons learned.
And this is a very good lesson, I think, having seen some of that. In light of there being a future of non-lawyer money into law firms, this is a good cautionary tale for our people to listen to, because the people who listen to this podcast and watch this show are the people who might be the first people approached for some outside stuff, because they have built systems, they have the sort of the kind of business operations that outside money is appealing to. And so this is the kind of thing that you should listen to and watch, because these are the kind of things that you can learn from his problems and protect yourself when that outside money comes in. And I really think it's going to be a phenomenal interview, and there's going to be a lot of good stuff from it. You got something to say there? I can see it.
No, I just yes, it's incredible. And I just to dovetail on that comment you made, I got my first email from somebody who's like wanting to invest in or buy it for. I think it's nonsense, but that is in what Rand went through, and what he sort of the lessons learned there. I think that his business lessons were, to me, fascinating and shocking, that he explores in his new book. But more importantly, I think for myself as a fanboy, to be able to get some time listening to what was going on behind the scenes as we were following his ride was just it's great, and I think everybody will really enjoy it.
Yeah, one of the big takeaways, and I don't want to step on his interview too much, one of the big takeaways I got from seeing him live now 2 years ago at SMX East was that our biggest competitor isn't the law firm down the street. Our biggest competitor is Google, we have to plan for that. So, and then the other thing coming up after the break, we're going to do a quick interview with our friend Russ Nesevich about his new show and podcast in the MaxLawMedia family. So why don't we do this now, Seth? Why don't we take a quick break? We'll hear from our sponsors. We'll get everything lined up. And when we come back, we'll bring in Russ. We'll talk a little bit about his show, some of the things that his show is going to bring to the community about lawyers and money and finance. And then we'll be able to wrap up the show after that. Sound good?
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Maximum Growth Live.
In this world today, if you want to grow your business, you want to grow your firm, you want to take on more cases and make a bigger impact, you have to have a digital blueprint. Statistically, throughout the time that we've been working with Blue Shark Digital, our law firm, the Atlanta Divorce Law Group, grew over 1,400%. They truly understand where we're headed and how we want to get there. I have a team in Blue Shark Digital that I feel like has my back.
I'm going to just start the recording now so you guys know. So, Seth, did you see that email from Russ that we cannot mention anything related to his financial practices, and that he is
Correct.
just
I didn't see it, but I assumed
Yeah.
as much.
because we don't want to have
I
to
thought
have him.
as you said, you're not allowed to mention, and I was going to be like scandal in his office, or
Right.
his prior felony convictions, or
Right.
yeah, I
Right.
get it.
Exactly.
So we're talking about. We could talk about trust and estates,
Yep.
and we could talk about.
Look, we can talk about financial stuff. We just can't specifically mention that I have this other job as a financial advisor or King Financial or Commonwealth. So we can talk about like the fact that I just did a show on what bonds are, but we can't talk about the fact that I happen to have securities licenses that are hung with Commonwealth Financial.
Well, the question I'm going to pose to you is, in your experience, what is the financial literacy of most lawyers?
Right.
Because I think that's something that people need to understand. And then that's a segue to, so I'm doing this podcast, I'm doing this live show every week, because I think it's something that lawyers need to know, that type of thing.
Hey, Russ, can you make sure we're not butchering your last name?
It's Nesevich.
Nesevich.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Sometimes I say stuff to people all the time, and then it turns out that I've been wrong the whole time.
You're good.
All right, so I'll give you a countdown, Seth. You do the intro, then throw to me when you're ready. All right, in 3, 2.
Russ Nesevich, great to have you here. We're very excited for multiple reasons. A friend of the show, is somebody who we've enjoyed working with on their law firm, and now to be part of MaxLawMedia. Welcome to the club.
Good to be here. It's been a heck of a run for a few years now. Getting to know all of you, getting to know the rest of the Max Law guys, the guild. It's been terrific.
Well, tell us what is this new property? What is the new program?
So the new program is Maximum Finance, and we are going live in the group every Friday morning at 11 a.m. and then it'll be a podcast as well. And we're going to be talking about financial topics. We're going to be talking about financial topics that are important to people in their business, important to them personally, the markets, bonds, stocks, investments, insurance, all sorts of things. So
like sort of the Kramer of the Max Law network. I will be yelling less than Kramer, but yes, theoretically something close, something hopefully half as entertaining. Well, let's hope a little more accurate after seeing the Lenny Dykstra fallout. So Jay had a question as we were sort of preparing for this. I'd love Jay to sort of kick this off.
Sure. So Russ, it's great having you on the show, and I mean, you come from a really interesting background. You have a finance background. You also are a trust and estates lawyer. And as someone who's tried to build my business from, $0 up to where I am today, I've really struggled with some of the financial aspects of it. But I think in our prior conversations, can you tell me what is the, in your experience, the basic financial literacy of entrepreneurial lawyers out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. There was somebody in the group once who said something like, no, it might have been Ryan McKean, actually. I'll give him credit for it, whether he said it or not, who said that nobody would ever start a restaurant the way that we start law firms. Because we think we're going to do everything and we're not paying attention to the books like we ought to be. And, we don't know the cost of a steak versus what we're selling the steak for. And it's just completely, nobody would open a restaurant the way that we open law firms. So I think that's the point.
But Russ, it's funny you say that, because I think this is a problem for small business owners everywhere, because the truth is most people, unless you're a corporate chain, which is why they make it and other ones don't, the turnover of small restaurants is astronomical, because the people I know plenty of people who open restaurants that don't know that information, just as we know plenty of people at law firms that don't have that information at their fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's high schools don't offer basic financial education. Colleges don't offer basic financial education. So it's not just lawyers. You have lawyers, doctors, people, engineers, people in all sorts of areas of business, of entrepreneurship, of whatever it is, who don't know how to look at a basic balance sheet, who don't know the difference between a stock and a bond. They think they do, but they're not 100% sure. So I think that if we can have this podcast and this show and just sort of educate a little bit on look, there's some people who just do it themselves, right? They invest themselves, they do their bookkeeping themselves, they do it all themselves. That's great. Maybe we can teach them something that'll help them to do it a little bit better. There's other people who have lots of advice and lots of guidance, whether it be from financial advisors, from CPAs, from bookkeepers, from insurance agents, from whoever it is. If we can teach them 3 questions that they should ask that will make their financial advisor or their CPA think twice before they recommend the next thing, because they know that they're paying attention and they're a little bit smarter, that's a good thing. That'll benefit everybody.
Yeah, I definitely think that's important to really sort of just give people the knowledge that they need, because that's one of the things that's lacking. Even when you start to look at some of the books that are out there, I mean, our book, Tiger Tactics, E-Myth, which we talked about at the top of the show, I'm sure we'll talk about at the back end, Seth. There's a lot about how to scale, how to put in systems, how to do all these things. But the financial aspect of running a law firm and how much debt should you take on as you finance your cases and all that stuff is important to know. And it's also important to know in the context of, you want to maximize your revenue out of this, because this is your income stream. And if you take too many risks on the law firm side, you could really put your own personal financial security at risk. And I think that's one of the great things about a podcast like this and a show like this, Russ, is that you're going to give people the tools to make informed decisions.
No, I look at
sure
it.
Hope so. Go ahead, Seth.
No, Russ, I was going to say, as I started the firm, I have found, just like a litigator has to become an expert on everything within a short period of time, a friend of mine in the antitrust space was toilet seat partitions. He became like the expert in that in a matter of a couple of weeks. When, each area, whether it be malpractice insurance, whether it be SEO, or whether it be finance, it's one of those things like getting enough knowledge so you can at least start to ask the right questions. I think it's almost like a literacy piece. And it is tough because as the entrepreneur, you spend so much time with all of these different interpersonal things, scaling, putting the systems in place. It is very easy to not focus on the thing, which is why the end goal, presumably besides personal satisfaction, is what hits your account and what do you get to keep?
Yeah, I think that literacy is a great word. I think that's exactly right. So if we can help to make everybody a little bit more literate in some of these things, and it's not just your business, right? So we all talk about, we're all spending all of our time talking about running our law practices and running our business. And look, we all do it to make money, right? The whole goal is to generate revenue, right? And bring a little bit more money home to our families. But then what? I mean, do you lease or buy your car? Should you open up a 529 plan for your kids? A lot of us are high income earners. I guarantee you there's guys out there who are taking income and cash flow out of their brokerage accounts that's taxable, where if they move their investments around a little bit, it could be non-taxable. We see people all the time who are very, very aggressive in their brokerage accounts and not aggressive in their 401ks. They should be doing the exact opposite. 401k is long-term money. It's non-taxable today. You should be aggressive in your 401ks. And if you're going to be less aggressive, you do that in your brokerage accounts where you don't want a lot of taxable transactions. So it's just basic things that they're basic to me, but they may not be basic to you or to somebody else who's listening. So that's our goal, is to make the easy stuff a little bit more basic and help with a little bit of literacy.
It's funny, even as you just spoke, just light bulb went off. Like get the money in the retirement accounts more aggressive, not the other way around, which I'm sure I'm guilty of. Question for you: what are sort of some of those biggest mistakes when you look at attorneys and you say, again, when I say mistakes, there's some stuff is subjective, lease versus buy. There are certain personal issues going on. But what are the 3 fundamental biggest mistakes you see lawyers make that you wish you could educate them to?
It's a great question. I think too much debt too fast is probably one of them, and I think not understanding the kind of debt that they're taking on. I've seen a couple of attorneys who have taken hard money loans and just wind up blowing up, not realizing that they're putting sort of their personal credit lines on the line and not just their business. I think that's a really good one. I think paying yourself first is always a good idea. And it's something that we see quite often attorneys not doing, right? They keep putting their money into the practice and into the practice and into the practice. You have to be sort of regularly paying yourself first, taking money out. I mean, you're responsible to yourself and to your family. And then I think it's those basic investing things, like if you have a business, you should look into things like a SEP IRA or an IRA, whatever you can qualify for. Should you have a 401k plan for your employees and then for yourself? So it's taking out that money and making sure that you're getting income, or that you're getting value, that you're growing wealth that isn't taxable. So how do you do that? How do you maximize the ability of non-taxable money out of your business before you start taking taxable money out of your business, like salaries and all of those other things? So if I had to pick three off the top of my head, those are probably three good ones.
And I'm going to do one more rule of three. Of what are three things, like hacks? You mentioned leasing. What are three things that aren't major, but like by tweaking how you do something could give you a benefit that's pretty easy to do, but you may not be doing now?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of there's some great books that have been written on sort of automating investing and automating savings, where X number of dollars comes out of your account every month. I think those are great. And I think that quite often we don't think about it in those terms of just sort of automating how much we're taking out and saving and investing. So I think that's one. I think another one by the same token is automating paying ourselves. So look, we all do this. The first year of my practice, I didn't take a salary, but every 3-4 months, I just took money out, right? So I think automating every month, I take $5,000, $6,000. I have a $120,000 a year salary, $10,000 a month, whatever it is, and setting up your business to run that way, I think makes a heck of a lot of sense. And then we'll just stick with automation. The third tip: are you having a conversation with your bookkeeper every month? Are you sitting down with your bookkeeper every single month and just having it could be a 5-minute conversation. Hey, what this month look like relative to last month, relative to the goal? Thanks a lot. What can we do a little better next month? Great, thank you. So CPAs quite often are looking backwards, right? Well, this is how much you owed in taxes. This is what you did last year. This was the revenue. This was the gross. This was the net. It's great to be able to try to look forwards and to try to sort of predict some of that stuff so that you could be a little bit more intentional with what you're doing from a tax perspective, from a cash flow perspective, and all of those types of things.
You know, every once in a while we go to one of these seminars. I know Jay, I have talked about it, and you see some high flying CPA who is very slick from the stage, who's giving you very aggressive techniques, renting your house out back to yourself for the Christmas party, creating a TV studio. Like, is there, like, how do you balance that? Because they sound great. I just am one of those people that says, like, when it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And like, I always, to me, I'm always asking, okay, so how many times have you and your clients been audited? Because to me, there are things, you could do whatever you want. The question is, will anybody ever peek under the hood? What's your advice to people as you sort of people are in your ear with very aggressive tax strategies?
Yeah, great question. So let me be crystal clear. I am not a CPA. I am an estate planning attorney in New Jersey. So I want to be very, very careful with how I answer these questions. I think a second and a third opinion is always a good idea. And I think that the idea of having a team is always a good idea. So I don't make a move like that without talking to, so I'm an estate planning attorney. I don't make a move like that without me, the estate planning attorney, talking to my CPA and my financial advisor, sometimes together on the phone, and making sure that my CPA and my financial advisor are saying the same thing. And sometimes they're not. And we'll get off the phone and my financial advisor will call me and say, hey, that guy, the CPA telling you to put that TV studio in your house, that's a horrible idea. Please don't do that. And I give you the number of another CPA to talk to. So not that I'm suggesting that's a horrible idea. That may be a great idea. But I think that having the team of people around you, which frankly is part of what I've done with my law practice, right? I've grown my law practice by having guys like you and Jay and Ryan and Jim and Tyson as part of the team. So I don't make a lot of major moves without reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, I got this advice, but what do you think about this? You should be doing the same thing for your financial lives and your financial stuff. So if you have a financial advisor and you like him and you trust him and you think he's doing a great job, it doesn't hurt once a year, once every 2 years, once every 3 years to get a recommendation for another really good financial advisor and have them review what your guy is doing. And they usually don't even charge you for that sort of thing. So I think that any time that you can get a second opinion, a second look, clear some advice with somebody else, I think that's always, always, always is a good idea.
Hey, Russ, I have a question for you as we wrap this up. One of the things that really troubles me that I have found is a lack of an estate plan for entrepreneurial lawyers. They basically are eternal optimists that their business is going to last forever and every year is going to have more and more profit. And so they never take those things to plan for their own unfortunate demise. What are the things that lawyers can do or should be doing very simply to protect their families in case of a tragedy?
Yeah, so speaking as an estate planning attorney, if nothing else, I mean, the simplest thing in the world to do is to have a relationship with another attorney in town where you have some sort of backstop agreement, which is basically, hey, look, if something happens to me, right, this is the one password that you need, the one person that you can talk to, whether it's my paralegal or my assistant or whoever it is, to step in and help take over some of these files, my accounts receivables, make sure I get paid, whatever, right? That is the easiest, simplest thing to do. And we should all be doing that, frankly, just to make sure our clients are taken care of. So forget about the family part, right? We have an obligation to our clients. If something happens to you and you're in the middle of a trial, who's going to step in and take that over? So that's simple. That's level one. Level 2 and level 3 are things like buy-sell agreements, right? If something happens to me, having somebody who's already agreed to buy your firm for a certain price, maybe they have a life insurance, maybe you have life insurance on them, they have life insurance on you, you can buy out the spouse. There's all sorts of things that we should be doing that I would say 90% of us are not. It's sort of the cobbler with no shoes, right? We all know, we all give this wonderful advice to our clients when they set up their businesses about things like buy-sell agreements and partnership agreements and life insurance and all this stuff. And then we go home and we've done none of it for ourselves. So the real easy thing is have somebody local in town who can take over your cases. But then plan B is things like buy-sell agreements and who can really step in, who can buy your business if you get hit by a bus and make sure that your spouse gets paid and is taken care of.
Wow, that's all really good stuff. And that's
awesome.
all stuff that you're going to be covering on your show, right? To talk about these things over the next couple of months as we go. Things that lawyers that are in our shoes should be looking out for so that they can make sure that they got a checklist of things that they're going to accomplish to be more financially secure, more thinking about the finances in 2021. Is that basically encapsulate what you're doing for us?
That's exactly right. And we're just going to do some basic education as well.
So the name of the show is
Maximum Finance. How
come not Maximum Money? And you got the M alliteration there. I mean, I got to tell you, Maximum Money sounds like it. I don't know. Yeah, maybe it's just me. I was pitching this show for 6 months. I had no idea that they had actually reached out to you. I was saying, Tyson, you got to do a show about finances. It's the thing I'm weakest about.
I think you're both are maximum moolah.
Oh, I like that.
I
like that. I like that a lot. I like that. So, Russ, thank you so much for being on with us today. We're really looking forward to listening to your show over the next months and years. I always get a lot when I spend time with you. I'm sorry I haven't been able to be with you in person, but this makes up a little bit for it, and I'm looking forward to spending time at other Max Law events in the future.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Always good to see you both.
All right, so the show can be heard when again? Let's give it one last time.
Friday mornings, 11 a.m., Maximum Finance.
And that's 11 a.m. Eastern, right?
Whichever you prefer.
And that's 11 a.m. Eastern, right? Not 11 a.m. Central?
11 Eastern, every Friday.
Excellent. Awesome. Thank you, Russ. Thank you for being with us. Seth, let's take a quick short break, and then when we come back, we'll wrap up the show, okay? Hi, I'm Jay Ruane, one of the founders of FirmFlex and a practicing attorney for over 20 years. Anyone who knows me knows how my firm runs on the systems we create, and it has allowed us to flourish, even in tough times. I spent years and hundreds of thousands of dollars until I finally figured out a way to engage my audience and drive top-of-mind awareness with social media. And what did I do once I figured it all out? I built a system for it, and now you can put that system to work for you. You see, we took the hard part, creating the content and finding the images, and made it foolproof. Every day you will have curated social media topics to post designed to make your firm constantly remind your audience about your firm, what you do, and how you can help. And the best part? You don't even need to hire a dedicated social media person to do this for you. In fact, you don't even need to hire anyone new. We designed the system to make it easy for you to delegate to your receptionist, assistant, or paralegal and have them execute solid social media for you in just 5 minutes a day. It's like having a content writer, researcher, and graphics designer at a fraction of the price it would cost to hire in-house. Sign up today for the Social Super System and start building your brand where your clients already are, on social media. Wow, Seth, I love spending time with Russ. I always have a good time. I've actually referred family members to him because I got a lot of family in Jersey. But I got to tell you, man, this new show that he's got is right up my alley, and I know a lot of people are going to love it. What are your thoughts?
No, for me, it's the stuff that I think least about. I'm always put my head down and get stuff done. But you're like, hey, you're killing yourself to make a buck. It'd be nice to sort of spend at least a modicum of time or the right amount of time figuring out how to keep it and how to strategically make sure that you're taking care of for the future, which is why we're doing all this.
Yeah, I have while he's talking, I was taking a couple of notes down below. I had my cell phone with me and I was sending myself some notes. There's so many questions that I would like to ask him on his show about things that we can do. Every now and then as a law firm, you wind up with a windfall of a big chunk of money that comes in that you weren't expecting. What's the best thing to do in that situation? There's so many things that it comes to your money as lawyers with unfortunately, I have such little experience. The only thing I have going for me is that years ago I set up a 401k plan for our office, and that has continued to be where I focused my money over the years and made sure I made those contributions and got the match and got all my people involved in it and that type of thing. So I'm glad I did that early on.
Absolutely. No, and there are a lot of little things. There's also stuff that's age appropriate for a firm. For a SEP IRA, when you have a limited number of people, the first 3 years, there's not even an obligation to contribute beyond yourself as a business owner.
Yeah.
And then after 3 years, it's anybody who's been there with you for 3 years or more. So there are all these sort of like different things. You don't know what you don't know, A. And B, I think one of the greatest frustrations is most of the time when somebody comes to you with like, what do you do with a big settlement check? It's from a vendor that has an agenda, and they sell that widget. It may be a perfectly fine widget that can make you money, but at the same time, is that what's right for you, or is it just the widget that they're selling? And I love it when there's perspective of all different things, of options and opportunities.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this podcast. I've got questions that I'm going to send off to Russ and tell him, make sure you cover these. And I've already subscribed. I've given it 5 stars. This is the next big thing. When I'm on my Peloton, I'm going to be doing my scenic ride and listening to Russ and everything that he has to say, because I think a lot of people will get a lot of stuff out of it. I did 12 and a half miles yesterday on my Peloton, Seth. I'm really trying to.
Wow.
I'm trying to do it. I'm sticking with it. I'm getting rid of the treadmill desk at my office because I don't think I'm ever going back to an office. But I got my Peloton home, and I'm going to keep riding that.
That's awesome.
I should have bought some Peloton stock months ago. Is really what I should have done. But hey,
you and me both.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So with that, we're going to leave you with this edition of Maximum Growth Live. I am Jay Ruane, CEO of FirmFlex Social Media Marketing for Lawyers. He is Seth Price, Blue Shark Digital, as well as Price Benowitz, all over. They're in Kuala Lumpur, they're in Boise, Idaho, they're in Tokyo. They've got a whole Pacific Rim now thing going on that I think is really exciting. I'm excited about the expansion into Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia. I think those are going to be great markets.
I wish that would be a lot of fun. I wish there would that maybe Lawman will help me figure that one out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but tune in on Thursday, folks, for another edition of Maximum Growth Live. We are part of the Maximum Lawyer Media family, just like Maximum Money is, or Maximum Finance. See, I think I like that Maximum Moolah. I think that was a great name. It's a lot. It's got a hook to it. So I really like that.
Well, things could change.
Maybe internally, we'll you and I will refer to it as that, if nothing else. But what we're going to do is we're going to leave you for today. Please join us on Thursday live. We will be live. We'll be talking all about everything that changes in growing your law firm, which is what we are all about. Please join all of our other Maximum Law Media podcasts and shows. You got Maximum Mom with Elise Buey, which is phenomenal. We've got Russ's show. We've got the main show, the Maximum Lawyer Show, which has been putting out some great stuff. So there's plenty of content for you here in the Max Law Media family. But for now, we're going to sign off. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Thursday. I'm Jay Ruane. He's Seth Price. Thanks for now. We'll see you. Take it easy. Bye.